All right, guys, today we're going to start a series that's going to go through the process of building a board bow. Now, most of the bows that I build are from staves, either Osage hickory or whatever. But the reason I wanted to do a video series on board bows is because there's a lot of people out there that don't have access to good staves, can't afford good staves. But one thing that is readily available to anybody, no matter where you are in the country, is a maple or a red oak board from your hardware store. So I get a lot of emails through my website, and probably the top question that I get is, where can I find an Osage stave? And oftentimes these questions are coming from guys that are just getting into bow building. Maybe this is their first bow and they're looking to buy an Osage stave, which for a good stave, you're going to spend anywhere from 80 to even up to 140 bucks, and that's not including shipping. And so I really try to discourage guys that are just getting into bow building from spending that kind of money on a stave, because unless you have someone with a lot of experience sitting right there with you, you're going to make some mistakes. And there is no better way to discourage a new bowyer than to have them mess up an expensive stave like that. And so I always encourage people to, when possible, harvest their own wood. And if not, start with something like this. Start with a board bow that you can get for cheap. I mean, you can get these things, you can get a board, 6-foot board for 10 bucks. And so if you mess it up, so what? You're not out much. I picked up, this is a maple 1x2. I picked this up from Home Depot yesterday. They're about I'm gonna say $1.40 per linear foot. So for a 10-foot board like this, you know, you're looking at 14 bucks. You obviously don't need a 10-foot board, but they didn't have any 6-foot boards that had grain that was acceptable. When you go to look at boards at the hardware store, you're probably going to have to look through a lot of them, because a lot of them are going to have grain that runs across the board. You don't want that. Ideally, what you're looking for is that grain to run from one end to that board to the other. If you have a lot of boards to look through, a quarter sawn board where the grain runs from back to belly would be best. It's not critical because we're going to end up back in this bow anyway. And then also another thing to look for is the weight of the board. If you have a lot of boards to look through, just pick them up and feel them. And the heavier boards are going to have a higher specific gravity. They're going to be a little bit denser. And in my experience, they're going to make a little bit better bow. Now, this is a maple board bow that I made probably last week. It's quick. It's you can make a bow in just a few hours if you exclude the drying time for the rawhide backing that we're going to put on here. Now, the tools that we're going to be using are very simple. Primarily, we're going to be using a little block plane like this. We're going to use a draw knife a little bit. You don't have to use this. You can build the entire bow with just a scraper and your block plane, but a draw knife will come in handy. And then we're also going to be using a rasp a little bit for shaping out the handle and the nocks and things like that. So talking about harvesting your own bow wood, there's bow wood throughout the country. It doesn't matter where you live. I don't care if you're in the desert Southwest or up in the Northeast or Pacific Northwest, wherever you are, there's going to be something nearby you that is going to make a good bow. And I just released a new book that covers actually a lot of these different species. It covers probably 12 to 14 different species from around the country. Talks about the different characteristics of the wood, where you can find them, the types of bow designs that they do best in. And it goes through the entire process of building a bow. It actually talks about board bows a little bit. And then there's also a chapter in there on how to build a 2-piece takedown bow. You can find that book on Amazon. You can get signed copies from my website. So check that out at twistedstave.com. So just to show you what we've got here, This is a 70-inch bend through the handle D-style bow. It's pulling about 50 pounds at 29 inches. And this bow, I would feel very confident in hunting with this bow. You can see it's flexing through the handle. It's got a nice tiller. And for something that came from Home Depot, this thing made a very nice bow. So with that said, let's get started on this board we've got here. All right, so obviously I don't need a 10-foot long board. And so this board actually, down towards this end, the grain starts to get a little bit wavy and it kind of runs off towards that end right there. So I'm gonna get the bow out of this end where the grain is good. So I'm gonna go ahead and just take a tape measure, pull off however long I want my bow to be, and then saw off this extra stuff and I can do something else with that. 70 inches. All right, so this board is pretty straight. It's got a little bit of a bow to it, kind of towards that side, down towards that end. Sometimes you'll find wood that has a little bit of a curve to it, but that's not important unless it curves really bad. You can just kind of, what I do is lay out a string line, pop a line, and then just lay the bow out off of that. But if it has a little bit of a curve to it, you can just move your string towards the ends. You can move it to one side or the other so that your string runs right through the middle where the handle's going to be, because your limb tips are going to be narrowed down anyway, so it doesn't matter. All right, so just like we did on our Osage bow that I did in the video series a while back, we're gonna find the center. Then we're gonna come up 1 1/4 inches, down 2 3/4. That's gonna give us a 4-inch handle. Actually, I'm going to go ahead on out 3 inches from those outer lines. That's going to give us a 10-inch handle section overall. So I'm going to go ahead and draw the profile on the back of this board here. I'm going to start with the handle section. Now, this bow is going to have a little bit of a paddle shape to it, so the handle is going to get a little bit narrow here. It's going to come out. We're going to have the full width of these of the limb or of the board for the limb width, and then it's going to taper in towards the knock ends. So we'll get started laying out the handle here. Actually, I've got a compass here. This thing actually comes in handy. You don't have to have this, but it will come in very handy for laying out these bows. All right, I'm going to start by just putting this right on that center line just to kind of darken it up a little bit, make it easier to see. All right, so the way that we popped our line, that line should be right in the center of the stave in the handle section. Down towards the limb tips, it can be over a little bit. That doesn't matter. We'll square that up later. But right here, it should be right in the middle. Now, I'm going to narrow this handle up just a little bit. So that 4-inch handle section, now I want to show you how you can do this without the compass. What I normally do is just take the pencil, hang it over in here, and use my finger and scribe it that way. Now, this handle section is going to flare out a little bit towards these other lines we drew. All right, now that we've got this drawn on here, we can move to our tips and draw those on. All right, first thing I'm going to do is draw this line on out. Our string line didn't pop all the way to the end because our string didn't have chalk on it all the way down there. There we go. So you can see that this line here is off to this, it's favoring this side just a little bit. That's fine. I'm just going to go ahead and come to either side about 1/4 inch or 3/16. It's not critical. And then I'm going to measure down, about 12 inches or so. Now I'm going to draw a straight line from here to here. Now our bow is probably going to curve out a little bit as far as the shape of the limbs goes, but this is going to give us a good reference line. All right, so here at the handle, bow's going to dip in a little bit. It's going to get full width. It's going to ride that full width all the way down to about 12 inches from the nock, and then it's going to start to taper in. We're going to do the same thing for the other limb tip. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move that handle section so it's not right there in the vise, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut out the profile right here with this handle. I'm going to use my rasp to do that. Alright, so we got the handle narrowed out. With the limb tips, I'm going to turn it up on edge and use our draw knife a little bit. Be sure to pad it. I'm going to get the bulk of that wood off with the draw knife, and then we'll smooth it out with the rasp. flip it over, do the same thing on the bottom side. All right, so we've got the profile of this bow cut out. Now on the next video, we're gonna go ahead and start in on the floor tillering process, and the bulk of that is gonna be done with the little block plane here. We're gonna go ahead and floor tiller it and get it bending a little bit, and then we're gonna put it in a jig, put a little bit of back set in it, and then we're gonna go ahead and back it with rawhide. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can stay up on the next videos that we're uploading. And leave a comment and give us a thumbs up. That helps push these videos to the top of the search engine. And don't forget to check out that book. You can find it at twistedstave.com or by going to Amazon and just searching for bow building. You might have to scroll down a little bit, but you'll find it. So with that, we'll see you next time.